Alright, so now we've got back down on the ground, wheels on, pulleys, that's good. It's okay, belt looks okay. This one is actually starting to look a little bit worn, so we'll inquire about maybe replacing that, but it'll at least make it one more season. Let's lube up the chute. There's little pads underneath here. It's usually kind of hard to spray upside down, but try to get a little bit on there. Put some on his gear. We got all these U-joints. I'm doing this over cardboard so that I can let it drip, and then I'll just either discard the cardboard, or it's easier to wipe up off the cardboard because half of it will soak into the cardboard. Pretty much anything that turns and moves needs to move. Including where it goes through here. Auger time. Oh, this is hard to grease to the point where it might be too late for this one. What happens is if this part rusts to the inner shaft, then the shear pins aren't going to be able to do their job. And the whole job of the shear pins is to break if the augers hit something, so that way you don't tear up the expensive brass gears in the gearbox. So some of these snowblowers have grease fittings here, so you can pump some grease in between the shaft and the auger. So that way, the snow and the rust, or the snow can't cause rust to build up in there so easily. Oh, this one, there you go. You can see it coming out by the shear pin and also the edge there. That's not totally rusted. Alright, with the augers greased, let's check the auger gearbox. Looks like we got some oil on the threads of the bolt already, so this looks like this one contains oil. It's wanting to drip out a little bit, so that tells us that it's still pretty full on the oil. So there's plenty of lubrication there. So we can re-snug that drain plug. That's still good. And so now that we got the front end greased and the drivetrain greased, waiting on a scraper blade and skid shoes yet, let's go ahead and change that oil. So for changing oil, just like before, we're going to want to warm it up before we try to evacuate it. Set up the exhaust here. Make sure we hook up our spark plug wire. And we know that it's going to start with one pull, but also knowing that, seeing that the engine's equipped with the electric start, a lot of times it's a good idea to test the electric start. Make sure the electric start works, especially if the engine has been starting easily with one or two pulls. If the electric starter doesn't get used a lot, sometimes they rust or corrode into place and then they spin but don't actually engage the engine. So it's a good idea to try it out just to see if it'll work. If it's rusted into place, then we know that we can take it off and maybe free it up and clean it up for the customers so that if they do choose to use it, they'll be able to. So let's see here. On, choke on, fuel on. Prime it. Exhaust on. Sorry about the exhaust harmonics. Alright, so now that the engine's had a chance to run and warm up and the engine oil should be nice and warm, we should find that the oil is going to evacuate a lot quicker here. The engine might be pretty warm, but the oil is probably not quite that warm. It takes a little while for it to warm up here. I already got the spark plug replaced on this, so I'll have to do that while I wait for the oil. Alright, so that's all the oil gone. We'll go ahead and put our fresh stuff in there. This is an ST824, and so that takes about 26 fluid ounces. Knowing that I don't get it all out, I've pre-measured out about 24 fluid ounces here. So I'm going to pour just about all of it in, and then I'll check. Save myself a couple ounces to top off if needed. not be able to see here. But we're in the okay zone, but we are near the bottom part. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in the rest. Give that a minute to drain down. Now with that last little bit added, might be able to tell we're just below the full mark there. So oil level, check. Up next, I'll go ahead and put the covers on. These are the ones I parked the bolts for the belt cover because the belt cover doesn't have slots, it's actually got holes, so the bolts have to come all the way out. That one loose, so while I get the other one started. And just snug is all we need here. Now that they're all started, usually I like to start with these two first as far as finish tightening. I could still make carb adjustments with the cover on because of the holes here. I know I gotta do that yet. Okay, so that cover's on. You may have noticed that I made a couple of adjustments while the engine was warming up. That's because I noticed that it was surging a little bit, and normally that's, can be due to either governor issues or carburetor related issues. And I figured I'd try just adding a little bit of fuel, knowing that the carburetor was just taken apart, cleaned, and the screws were messed with. So don't forget your choke knob. All right. Now we just need the rest of the parts.